various leadership training curricula, as well as being a part of our board. So I'm just really delighted that, and she's going to give some more of her own testimony, because if anybody could talk about change, it's Jean. And you will understand that as we conclude some of our time together. But I'll just turn it over to her. But before we do, why don't we pray, okay? Father, we just thank you so much that you are an unchanging God. We thank you that you are the sure foundation for our times. You always have been, you are, and you always will be. And I just am so grateful that we have a God in whom we can trust and whom we can depend upon, no matter what the circumstances. So today, Lord, I pray that we would have ears to hear you and hearts to be changed and minds that would learn. I thank you for Jean. I pray your anointing on her. Thank you for her willing service that she has offered to so many for so many years. And I just pray a special blessing on her today. And we give you praise and glory in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Well, I am just delighted to be here. And I am going to share my screen and make this go full screen. And I just want to give you all right, I think I'm going to make it go full screen. Why are you not doing that? I'm going to make this go full screen. I think I have to do that from the main screen. This software that I'm using is called eMaze. And eMaze is actually pretty cool for designing. It's kind of like PowerPoint on steroids. And it allows you to do all kinds of nifty things. And your presentation is in the cloud, so that anywhere you are, it is. And we will share out the link to this when we're all done. And I just hit record, so we have record going, so you'll be able to share this with others as we go. So let me move this up a little bit. And can everybody see the presentation okay? Mm-hmm. I just have to move there we go. Okay. Let me bring that to full screen. That should be a little bit better for everybody. All right, so today we're going to be talking about changing world and unchanging God. And I want to just do a quick review of how Zoom works in case you are new to Zoom. I know so many of us have been on Zoom all the time. But to know how Zoom works, if you mouse over your screen, it makes the navigation buttons show. At the bottom, we have the mute and the show video if you need to pause that for one reason or another. And we have somebody else joining us. One of the buttons you want to look for later is chat, which we're going to be using to discuss things so we can all type and talk at the same time. The other button is over here on the right-hand side, upper right-hand corner, and you can see it will toggle from speaker view to gallery view. Gallery view is where you can see everybody. Down at the bottom, speaker view is where you see who's ever speaking. And if you don't see the button up at the top, it's just because it disappeared. So you can see as I mouse over and move away, you can see these buttons coming back on here. If you're not seeing the buttons, you just mouse over and you'll see that. And if you're in speaker view, it toggles to gallery view. If you're in gallery view, it toggles to speaker view. So the other thing too, when you turn on chat, it appears in the middle of the screen, which is not terribly useful. So you can click it at the top and you can drag it wherever you want on the screen. So you click and hold and you drag it over. All right, enough computer talk. Linda is going to be doing the logistics on the background, and I'm just going to be talking so she can help you with stuff like that. So let's talk about it. 2020, the world changed. Bam! We had COVID-19. We've had weather, as we talked about a little bit earlier. We've had racial tensions. It has just been a year like none I can remember. So let's think a bit and let's open up chat and let's see what you think has been the biggest change that you've experienced this year. You should be able to open that chat button down at the bottom, and we're going to talk about it. And I'm going to come out of full screen so that I can see the chat button, and I'm going to pull chat back up. And just go ahead and type in chat what kind of things you have dealt with. Biggest change. I see working from home, not being able to have in-person meetings, alone 24/7 in a tiny apartment. Yeah, I get that. Chat, not able to go to church, 3 years in your first book only to have it released during the worst time in history, but seeing God do great things. Health changes, canceling retreats. Yes, we have had to cancel all kinds of stuff. Distance learning. Yeah, Crystal is a teacher and she's had to teach her classes distantly. Doing all classes alone with ladies. Yeah, that's been challenging. Oh, not being able to go to the hospital. Yeah, and see family members. I know I have friends who have had people who died from COVID and they couldn't be there with them, and that's just been so hard. Family limitations, canceling of plans, canceling surgery, not being able to see or hug grandchildren. I saw a really interesting thing on my Facebook post. Someone had made this big divider, and it had armholes for grandma and armholes for the kid, and they were covered with plastic sleeves, and so they could hug each other around the plastic. It was really kind of clever. Let's see. Missing people. Yeah. Zoom funeral. Yeah. So many changes. So many changes that we've had to live through in this last year. You know, one of the things that we think about change, and we're kind of in the middle of it, it feels like there's just been so much overwhelming change. Well, what do you think? True or false? Change is scary. Is it always scary? Yeah, the death of George Floyd, that was certainly a big one.
Yeah.
H.P. Lovecraft, who's kind of a weird writer, he does a lot of horror and things, but he was based in Providence. So he says the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear. And the oldest and strongest kind of fear is the fear of the unknown. That's absolutely right. Maggie said sometimes change can be healthy, and we're going to take a look at the different kinds of change. You know, we stop and we say change has been so horrible, but we do change all the time. How many of you are married or have had to move or had children or lost a loved one? All of those are change, and change happens to us every day in so many different ways, and we don't always get it. I want you to listen to a video. Can you guys hear the sound? What happened to the sound? It was there. Did everybody lose sound?
No?
Let's try that again.
Wow.
Wow, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that's Eric Qualman, and he's looking at change and what the world is like today. Of course, he's in the tech world. Were there things that surprised you from that video? And you can answer that in the chat. And let me figure out how I get chat to go back because I minimized it. Yeah, type in the chat. What surprised you in that video? Yeah, more mobile phones than toothbrushes. Yeah, online relationships lasting longer. Yeah, so many things. Yeah, goldfish have a better attention span. That one is questioned in the learning communities, but so true. Yeah, lots have changed. And for those of you that are in women's ministry, the people that we are working with are different. They're coming from a world that is very different than the world we may have initially started our ministries in. And so we need to be aware that the world has changed. You know, maybe in COVID, you were thinking, I want to go back to the way it was before. I want to go back to normal. Remember the Israelites who wanted to go back to Egypt? Yeah, that's a natural longing to go. Well, let's think about that. Let's freeze everything at today and see what that would be like. Well, what if we froze things 5 years ago? What if you hadn't changed in the last 5 years? The world had. What if we hadn't changed in 10 years? The world has. 10 years ago, Obama was trying to think about how he was going to plan his next campaign, or his next 4 years. What if the world hadn't changed in the last 15 years? We wouldn't have the iPhone. The iPhone came out in 2007. What if you hadn't changed in the last 20 years? Think about how different the world was during the Bush era and today. Well, you get the point. We have been changing. Things have been changing around us, and we don't always pay attention to what's gone on. But if we step back and take a 2020 hindsight view, we can see how things have changed, because we do. We change all the time. So here is part of Change 101. Now, Linda mentioned that I teach at New England College of Business. I am the change management professor. I teach change management in the HR curriculum for the master's in HR, and I'm completing the writing of a change management course at the doctoral level. So I get it. I understand the theory. And there's some things we want to think about with change that we don't ever step back and think about. So the first thing, sometimes change is imperceptible. Perhaps you remember watching your kids grow up. All of a sudden you turned around and that little toddler was now a teenager. Sometimes change is imperceptible to us. Sometimes change is intentional. I'm going to go on a diet. We're going to move. I'm going to change my job. We are very deliberate about it, and we are driving the change that we make. But sometimes change is imposed, and change comes on us without our willingness to participate. Sometimes that change comes on from something else or some other circumstance. Something changes and we have to change within it. They're all different and we react to them differently. But the thing that we know about change is always inevitable. It's one thing we can't get away from. So I want to think, Linda is going to break you guys into small groups, and she's just going to randomize it. And what's going to happen is you're going to have a little pop-up on your screen that says, would you like to join whatever chat group it is now? And when you click that, it's going to jump you into a breakout room from our Zoom meeting. And you're going to have a chance to discuss this question with your group, and we're going to see which group can come up with the longest list of names of Bible characters who dealt with change. And we're going to give you, I don't know, let's say, what time are we at here? Let's give you 10 minutes to do that. And we'll give you a little warning when it's time to go back. And when it's time to go back, you'll get a note that says, okay, it's time to go back. Down on your screen, you'll see a button about leave meeting or leave room. Click leave room, because if you click leave meeting, you'll leave everything. And if you don't click fast enough, if you're just so involved in the conversation, Linda is going to click move everybody back, and it'll be like a vacuum cleaner that moves you back. But kind of like the Jetsons space travel. So Linda, are you ready to divide people up?
Yes, they're divided.
Okay, great. So let's go into the rooms and answer that question.
Lot of things in common with Joseph. I have dreams and I talk about them and I get in trouble for talking about them. So, and I think Joseph in the Bible, yeah, Joseph
I think
had a lot of changes.
Abraham too, had to change from being around family to going into unknown territory.
Yes.
Didn't. Yeah, and as I was writing down names, I finally am like, okay, I think all of them.
Yeah, definitely
So-
Paul
Yeah.
Yes.
in the New Testament. Yeah.
A question going through the list though was, did Jesus deal with
I was going to
change?
say that too. Yeah.
That's very interesting. I think he did.
Yeah. Well, like Jean was saying, though, everybody goes through change when you think about it.
Peter.
David.
Mary.
Who? Mary?
Mary, mother of Jesus.
Mary Magdalene.
Let's see.
Lazarus.
He was the deceiver initially.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Job.
I'm sorry, Job?
Job, yeah. All that change, losing his family.
I know.
And his body, yeah. How about King David? Did he?
Yes, he was a shepherd.
I wrote him down already.
That's true.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Basically everyone in the Bible.
How about Bathsheba? I mean, she was with Uriah, and then her husband is really murdered by David, and then she ends up being with David, so she had a change.
Daniel, the Shadrach, the
Yes. Hi, Jean. Are you jumping in and out of different conferences?
Yeah, I'm jumping in to see how everybody's doing, and
I can't believe I'm here. I had the hardest time getting in, but I made it.
I'm so glad you made it. So glad.
Yeah. We're kind of
Yes,
slowing down on
Sue, you're keeping track, right? You're writing
I am.
down.
I'm writing them down. Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
we have.
Yeah.
Is this a contest or something?
How about
Jonah? Oh, yeah.
Jonah, yes.
Yeah, Jonah will do a lot.
Yeah.
We definitely see him. We got to.
Mary, mother of Jesus, yeah, like being the only woman who had a child conceived by the Holy Spirit. So that's something.
Imagine what that might have been like, or for her parents. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm having God's son.
Right. I've always tried to imagine the conversation that she had with Joseph.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Welcome back as you're coming back. Wouldn't it be nice if we could get everybody to come on time to everything by just doing that? Wasn't that great? All right, I still see some, it looks like a couple more breakout groups are finishing up, and as they're coming, let's have a bit of a report out on what you learned. Let's all go back to chat and open up chat, and let's discuss what you discovered during that. And I want to hear from each group how many you found. So somebody say group 5X, whatever we found. So what did you discover? 31, group 4. Great.
Wow.
I don't see our chat. Did we have to do something?
The group chat, I don't know what happened to the group chat. If the group chat only works during when it's in group chat. That's a good thing to know.
Yeah, because I went to go look at the chat and it's blank.
Oh, bummer. We'll have to note
Unless
that.
somebody in our group counted them. I didn't count how many we had.
Okay. Oh, all the Israelites who left Egypt, 2 million plus. Okay, so Maggie, yeah, you get the bonus on that one.
We said that one too.
Okay.
Should I mute everybody again? Or?
Yeah, that's okay. Actually, it looks like we're not talking all over each other, so we can allow some. Let's see how it goes with everybody talking. Let's unmute everybody and see how it goes. So what did you discover as you did that?
Everybody had change.
Mm.
Yeah, big change.
Yeah. And was it always change they chose?
Jonah, we talked about how Jonah's change wasn't chosen. It was put on him by God.
Yeah. Or Job.
Jeremiah. We
Job.
also mentioned change can go for the worst.
Yeah.
We mentioned Judas.
Yeah, all kinds of different things can happen with change. Well, let's think about people who become born again and accept the message of salvation.
Amen.
There's some miraculous changes that occur in those settings. And that's a change that's chosen, that God works on. So let's come back to my screen and let's look a little farther and see what else we can discover about change itself.
Yeah.
Joe and I are going to go for a bike ride.
And now would be a good time to mute everybody again, Linda. That's okay. That's okay. Are you guys seeing my people and my chat on the screen? Are you?
Jean, you just got muted.
Oh dear, here we go again. Okay.
Okay, I think I am unmuted. Are you guys seeing just the screen, or are you seeing the Zoom people and my chat? Linda, what are you seeing?
I see the main screen and about 6 people on the side.
Okay, that's just that. Okay, that's
on the top.
Okay, that's just your view then. Good. Okay, good. I don't have to worry about keep moving this along. All right. So we talked about Bible characters who dealt with change. Now, so let's go to change 102 and let's talk about some of the theory of change, and understanding change helps us manage it. So principle 1, understanding change helps us cope with it. When you have a framework to understand what's going on and being able to step back from the forest and see what's going on, it makes all the difference in the world. One of the things that I talk about when I am counseling with women is the concept of bark view. You can't see the forest for the trees, but when you're in bark view, you are in the middle of a crisis and something is going on, and not only can't you see the forest, you can't even see the tree. Your nose is on top of the bark, and all you're seeing are possibly the little ants running up and down between the cracks in the bark and the shape and the pattern of the bark. And in bark view, in the middle of change, you can't even see what's going on. So being able to step back helps a lot. Understanding change helps us cope with it. Principle 2, change occurs in predictable patterns with predictable problems. Now you think, no, every change is the same. Well, no, there are some very predictable things that happen. And as we're going through this, think about some of the changes you've been through and maybe changes your family have been through, and see if you see these predictable patterns. For example, if an employee gets a pink slip, when they have to cope with change, there are very predictable things that happen. And we call this the employee stages of grief. And it goes from shock and numbness to a point of suffering. And eventually they can focus on the good. It starts out with, I can't believe this is happening to me. And then I don't like it. I liked it better when, and then that sense of hopelessness of what's the use. Eventually time moves on. And the person can start to say, well, maybe this isn't so bad. I can do something differently. We may as well face facts. Can anybody think of a time that something like that happened to you and that's the way you reacted? Did you react by fighting back in the beginning, the shock, and then the suffering, and then eventually came out to the good? Well, let's look a little further and see. There are coping mechanisms that occur when we're contending with change. And think about changes that might have happened in your church. Many of you may be old enough to remember when the transition from 3 hymns, a poem, and a prayer moved to worship music, and the big fight that went on in churches over something seemingly not such a big deal, but was a big deal to many. Hold out. Hope in the past is going to return. It's going to be the same. I don't want it to ever change. I don't like this. Move out. I'm going to leave the church. I'm going to go find another place, maybe relocate and hide in the nostalgic learnings for the status quo. Keep out. Hunker in the bunker. I'm just going to pull right in, and I'm not going to talk to anybody, and I'm just going to withdraw. Or maybe you see dish out, the people who lash out in hostility. Yeah, you've been in church meetings where you've dealt with people who are doing that. Maybe even you have. Close out. Oh, can't beat them, join them, throw in the towel. Not going to do it. And all those are negative coping reactions. But then there are people who might reach out and think about, well, let's talk about this. Let's figure it out and begin to change, looking with a direction to the future, recognizing that change happens. Very predictable, those kinds of things happen, and you see those kind of things. When you're dealing with your children, you'll see these same kinds of reactions. Yep, go ahead.
Something?
Absolutely.
I look at these and they look, am I wrong in seeing there's some grief stages here?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going
to here. And I think about when I look at this and I look at my own life, I feel like this is what I've gone through as a teacher, dealing with the changes happening in education.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say I'm finally at reach out.
Mm-hmm. Good for you.
Accepting the fact. And what helped, you're gonna laugh when I tell you what helped me get to reach out is the protests.
Oh, interesting.
And seeing what's going on with the police and their need to change.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like teachers we band together on issues and we come to conclusions about parents and students with no scientific evidence.
Yeah, it's all them.
And they're always bringing in these things they want to change, and we're cynical about it because they never stick with anything. So there's reasons for cynicism. But right now they're trying to change from suspending kids to restorative justice, which I'm starting to embrace that model. I think it's a good idea. But I wasn't ready. I was more like, hope in the past returns. Oh, suspend that kid. Get them out, why can't we bring, feeling that. I mean, part of my feelings were because of they got rid of suspension, but they never replaced it with anything. So that was part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
But now they're talking about getting into the restorative justice, and I'm feeling good about that because that goes along what's going on now in the larger society with how we need to change policing, how we need to change mass incarceration and different things like that. So I see that in my own life right there.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that. Hopefully others saw some in there as well. Well, principle 3, change is a part of life. We should expect change to occur. We live in a world and a mindset that we think we're going to go on and live happily ever after, and happily ever after, nothing's going to change. Something happens and you have to deal with it, and it always takes us by surprise. Always, always. So recognizing that change is part of life and we have to expect it to occur is another thing that helps us manage change. Our pastor in Providence that Crystal and Meredith and I all sat under used to say, you know, you're either just coming out of a crisis, in the middle of a crisis, or about to go into a crisis in one way or another, whether it's a crisis or a change, it's going to happen. And it's okay, we get through it. And we're going to talk about ways of getting through change. Change is a part of life, and we've done it lots. That's important for us to remember about that. We have done change, and we can do change, and we can manage change. Here's some perceptions of change. When change is my choice, getting married, woohoo, it's great, it's wonderful, yay, I love it. When change happens to you, getting a divorce, it's awful. Whether you were the one who needed to initiate, needed to cause whatever happened, it's hard. When change is our choice and we go into marriage, we often go in with the rose-eyed glasses, and then we recognize how hard it is in the end. But what changed was relationship, and the perspective on it is different. Same thing with buying a house or dealing with the foreclosure of a house. The thing that changed is the house status. We react on one side when it's our choice or when it happens to us. Ditto with getting a new job or losing a job. The change is a job. Having a baby or contending with an unexpected pregnancy or a miscarriage or something that happened. The change there is the child. And last year, change is my choice. Going to live a healthy lifestyle, going to do the vegan thing, going to do more plant-based, going to do whatever you're going to do this week. Or if change happens to you, it's a sudden illness. The change that happened was your health. So a lot of it is the perspective about whether you're choosing the change or whether the change is happening to you. And a thing to remember is when change is your choice, you feel like you have a sense of control. You feel empowered by what's going on, and you feel successful. But when we have change happening to us, there's a sense of loss of control, that powerlessness and fearful sense that comes over us because we really don't know what's going to happen. When you get married, you don't know what's going to happen either. But you kind of expect things because you feel like you're driving the bus. And that's a thing that we want to remember. When we jump into the sense of the unknown, that's where we become anxious. And we don't know what's happening to us, and we feel like we have had control taken away from us. And this is where change becomes difficult, when we don't understand what's going on, we don't know what's coming next. That living happily ever after is taken away from us, that in a sense fairy tale. But we as Christians know we will live happily ever after in the end when we're with Jesus. But in this earth we have tribulations and trials. So principle number 4, change imposed is change opposed. And this is kind of my cardinal rule about change management. When change is imposed on people, they will fight it. When change comes and people say, we have a problem we have to solve, it's much easier to move. In the case of changing music in churches, the reason Christian music started to evolve was we wanted to attract younger people, and younger people liked a different type of music. Had we come at this with, as a church, we need to grow, we need to do this, and you gain the buy-in to the problem, which will allow people to be more interested in working toward the solution. other than, okay, on May 1st, we're all changing to contemporary Christian music, and bam, you show up. And people don't like that. They don't like the change because it's imposed. The natural reaction to a change that's imposed on you is change opposed. Look at how people reacted to the coronavirus. It's been very interesting looking at the difference in the reaction in New England to a lot of the parts of the country. In New England, we recognized, oh, this is a disease. This is terrible. We need to do what we need to do to protect ourselves. In other parts of the country, it was the ban, the government, the whoever is imposing on this. I don't want to wear masks. My business is going to go out of business because we can't do it. We can't close all the businesses. And they're fighting that because it was change imposed. Yet when people understand the reason and the rationale and buy into the problem, it's much easier to get them to move forward. When an unexpected change happens, people almost always deal with uncertainty, anger, fear of the future, and a lot of anxiety. They are nervous Nellies because they just don't know what's going to happen. They've lost that sense of control and they worry about it. Generally, we see shock waves move through people as things are going on. First, it's that uncertainty and ambiguity. I don't really know what's going on here. Then there's a sense of mistrust that something else is going on and I don't know about it. And people go into a sense of self-preservation here. Let's look at some of the manifestations of that. With uncertainty and ambiguity, some people will start searching for information and they recognize that there's many unknowns. There's shock waves that are coming here. The mistrust, the feeling that the decision makers know more than they are sharing. When you hear rumblings in a company that something's going on and people aren't telling us, they're not being straight with us, it's not fair, it's not right. People expect surprises and they expect bad news. It's a downward slide that goes on here. And the self-preservation of, oh, I better be careful, I better keep my ducks in a row, I better keep my head down. Very common reactions. And here's an example from work, but this is something you'd also see in a ministry group. You'll see power struggles. You'll see low morale. You'll see productivity problems. You'll see communication tangles. You'll see people talking with other people and false information grows up. You see weak commitment to the organization. You'll see lack of cross-functional things and lack of team play. And you'll also see people bailing out. That's it, I'm gone, I'm done. Very common when people haven't bought into the problem. Principle 5, the more change disrupts an individual's ability to envision his or her own future, the greater the level of confusion, fear, anxiety, and doubt in the face of change. When I don't know what the future holds, I am scared. And there's a sense of confusion. Very, very common patterns that we see going on, especially if you're dealing with kids. If we're going to move, you're telling your family, we're going to move to the other side of the country. Well, they don't know what it's going to be like over there. They're terrified and they lash out in anger in that sort of thing. Now, Crystal earlier mentioned the sense of the grieving cycle. When a death occurs, we see predictable patterns. We see denial and isolation. We see displaced anger, and that displaced anger might be anger turned inward, mad at yourself that you didn't do whatever for the person before they died. But it also becomes displaced as anger turned outside, and you see bickering among families. With children, you see acting out. In the traditional grief sense, you see bargaining. Well, if I do this or I do that. When this grief cycle came out initially, it was for dealing with someone, the loss of a loved one with critical illness. Oh God, I will never ever smoke cigarettes again if only you'll let my spouse live, whatever. That bargaining occurs. There's a sense of depression that occurs and people just kind of sink away into isolation, angry at themselves sometimes. Sometimes needing to step away to regroup. And eventually it comes to acceptance. If you are walking through someone who has dealt with a loved one, you see these things. But you'll also see these things in change. to different degrees, but we definitely see that. And when you see the anger popping out, it's surprising. You don't see it. It seems uncharacteristic, but it's very common in the reactions to change. And it's an emotional roller coaster. Down at the bottom, we have the passive activity, and the top, we have the active. And it rolls up and down. You know, we're feeling stable, and then we become immobilized. We freeze. We can't do anything. Then there's the denial. Anything's going on. We go up to anger. Mad. I'm mad about this. I hate this. It's not going on. Bargaining. Back to our church music change. Well, maybe we can do some of this and some of that, or maybe we can beginning to move forward, but not necessarily coming to the answer. We drop some more, and then we come to, well, maybe I'll test this out and see, maybe this won't be so bad. And eventually we get to acceptance, or the person leaves. But the variable going across is time. It's not going to be share the change and instant acceptance unless people are realizing they're part of the solution. So recognize the responses are up and down. Now, when we want to make change work, it helps to learn to see change differently. Change is really an external event. It's something old stops, something new starts. That's really what change is. But when we think about transition, transition is an internal process. It's a way we can use for dealing with change, and it focuses on people. Crystal, I see your hand up. A question for us?
I'm wondering if when, like, because right now we see a lot of changes happening in our world.
Mm-hmm.
Wondering if when changes are taking place, if it wouldn't be better to sort of explain this to people,
mm-hmm.
so that they're better able to understand what they're going through, to help them more through the process.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right. And that's coming up at the end. This understanding change makes a huge difference in the way people respond to things, because we understand things within ourselves and can understand things within others. So I've got a slide about that coming up. You're reading my mind, which is great. In the Bridges model, William Bridges wrote a whole series of stuff on change management, and his program is called Transitions. And he talks about the concept of recognizing the ending, celebrating the ending. When you leave a company, you take some memento or tchotchke or something to memorialize what that was. And then he says, recognize you're stepping into a neutral zone where you really don't know what things are, and it feels fuzzy, and it's different for everybody how long or how broad it is. But eventually we can get to a new beginning when we're in a new place, and seeing where we are on the journey of the ending versus being in the neutral zone or being in the new beginning makes a huge difference. And I have another slide that'll talk about that, about people changing differently. A second model, a metaphor that we can use to understand change is from Kurt Lewin. And he talks about unfreezing, changing, and refreezing. Our normal world was like an ice cube. This was the way it was. It's square, it's wonderful, it's how we know what the world is. Then change happens and we become like water, and we need to think about being reformed and shaped. When we think about what God does to us, you know, our sinful life, and then he's morphing and changing us, and then he changes us into more sanctified people. It's a change process, and it's fluid and it's mushy. But if we think about we're going from one side to another, it helps us put a paradigm on things. It also helps us step out of the subconscious into the conscious, the watching brain, who can be rational versus the irrational who's not understanding what's going on. Now, when we master change as Christians, we certainly have an option that other folks don't have. Oh, yeah, we should have done this first, but we don't. Let's be honest. It's like, oh, yeah, that's right. There's that God thing in here. So some of the verses that come to mind about having an unchanging God, I, the Lord, do not change. That's in Malachi 3:6. And it's in the middle of a whole bunch of other stuff. But it's a powerful, powerful phrase to remember. God is a constant, and we can always rely on him. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of the heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. God is constant. He's not changing. He's the rock. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. God is unchanging. We have an unchanging God. God is not a man that he should lie, nor a son of humankind that he should change his mind. He has said, or has he said, and will he not do it? And has he spoken, and will he not fulfill it? We can rely that God is always there, God is always constant, and God is always in control. Doesn't feel like it, but he is. We want to remember that God is with us in the midst of change. I saw Edith sign on, and I did a workshop with her ladies on Psalm 46, and we did 7 sessions on this. And this is such a dear psalm to me. But let's think about what it says. You know, as we are in the midst of this chaos, God is our refuge and strength. Think about that big castle that you can go into, that refuge. He's our strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Now, therefore, we will not fear. And look at all the things that could happen that he's in the midst of. Though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though the waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. Pretty awful stuff happening there. The middle of the psalm talks about war and things going on and how God is in the middle of it. But in the end, he says, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Powerful, powerful place. Another one. And you, as you go through Genesis, you see God says this over and over again to the patriarchs as he's passing on the commandment. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. He is with us, a very present help. And he's got you covered. He knows what he wants for you. For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. That's Jeremiah 29:11. So this is kind of where Crystal was going before. We want to learn to recognize the patterns that occur as change is going on, and we want to take a step back and stop and look and listen. Remember, I said in Principle 2, change occurs in predictable patterns with predictable problems. So here's the first thing to know is that there's not going to be a smooth transition. You know, here's performance over time. Here we are in the late status quo before the problem happened or the change happens. And, you know, things are moving along pretty steadily. Then the foreign element of change occurs and chaos erupts. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And it feels like we've been in 3 months of craziness. But yet, you know what? As we have been here, all of a sudden some transforming idea comes and you know what? I'm just going to deal with this. We practice, we integrate, and we get better. And we wind up in the new status quo, which as you'll notice is better than it was before. We talk about the new normal coming up. And the new normal is going to be better because we are learning to move forward with change. So when you're in the middle of the chaos, recognize normal, predictable patterns. The change curve in general, we know when we're in that state of status quo, and people will react with shock and denial to a change. We know that disruption causes people to be negative, causes behavior to drop, causes work performance to drop. But as people begin to get better with the idea and begin to accept it, we begin to explore, and it eventually comes to acceptance. And then we go to rebuilding and commitment. Think about the battle of the worship music. You know, we were going okay, but we saw that, you know, things really weren't getting better. Here we wanted to invite more people. So instead of getting better, it got worse. for a bit, but then it got better. And that's a thing to remember. Now, what we know about the way people accept change is from the adoption curve, which is used in marketing. This particular curve talks about the way people accept technology, new technology, but it also fits into how people accept change. Think about when the new iPhone comes out. You know, your innovators, they're going to be right there, going to go buy the new one. I want the new one. I got with the new one. And then people who like it, okay, yeah, I'm going to get it. You probably have friends who are there who are getting that tech before everybody else is. And then some people jump in and jump on and yeah, okay, great, I'm going to do it. And then we have people who come, well, okay, yeah, I got to do this. I got to do this. My phone's not working anymore, so I have to get it. And then you have the laggards who come kicking and screaming. And maybe you have parents who are still on flip phones who fight getting a smartphone because they just don't want it. They feel like they don't need it. Or something else that they just don't want to do it. They're fighting, they're resisting. And that happens when you do a new program in women's ministry. You're going to have people who are going to jump on right away. Some people are going to come as you go. Some people, yeah, eventually they'll come, and you're going to have people who come kicking and screaming. It takes a while for some people to be willing to accept things. And if you've noticed the URLs that I put in here, these are all different theories from different people, but it repeats the concepts that we've seen. So as Crystal said, one of the things we can do with managing change and reducing the negative consequences is to talk about it. When people understand change, we can manage it. We can help them so it doesn't go down so far. And so we can accelerate change to happen quicker and earlier. And recognizing that shortens the time and lessens the impact. So it's important. And hopefully for you, this has been a point of understanding to say, hadn't thought about it that way. We can do something with that. This is another model, and we read this one counterclockwise. And the axis is stability and chaos versus looking back and looking ahead. When we're in a stable place where things feel good, things are stable, we can look back, it was okay, it was fine. But when something comes in to create change, our stability feels like it goes away. We feel like we go into chaos. Yep, we do. But then we begin to move counterclockwise around and we begin to experiment and discover. And we can begin to look forward until we can move into stability and looking forward and seeing where we're going. There are things that leaders can do that's out of the scope of this presentation to help encourage that. And I can share those with you if you want to see the other pieces of this. That's generally what I do when I present to management. But you can see it's cyclical, and you can see it's saying the same thing that I've been saying for the last few minutes. One of the other things that's important for principles of changing is everyone thinks of changing the world, but no one thinks of changing himself. That's from Tolstoy. I have been part of a community that is looking at white racism and white privilege and white stability and white fragility. And we have to look at what it is. It's not always about them, it's about us. Whether it's in a marriage, whether it's children, whatever it is, we have to be willing to look at ourselves. So the keys to all this is, first of all, planning. Expect resistance when you introduce a change. And be willing to work together through the chaos. Recognize we are in chaos and we're going to work through this together. Remember that change takes time. Everything you saw had a curve that moves things along. But most importantly, remember, God's got this and God's got you. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Think about Daddy hanging on to you. I'm not going to let you fall. You're going to do this. We're going to do this together. Important things to think about.
Amen.
Well, how do I know? Yeah, Linda mentioned, Jean is an expert at change. And those of you that know me remember this illustration that was on my Facebook page 13 months ago. 13 months ago, I went from living in a house that I'd lived in 25 years to choosing to sell my house and getting a job and not having the job and getting a job. And 3 days before I was supposed to move to Virginia, the job fell through. And so now I was selling my house, and I had no idea where I was going to move because I didn't know where my job was going to be. I had dealt with a few years earlier than that, waking up one morning to a Dear John letter from my ex-husband, typed generic, I'm just tired of all this. And he had moved out in the middle of the night and had this very neutral, I'd like to meet on the 4th of July to discuss the disposition of the house and its contents. Like, 38 years and you do this? What? So it was pretty crazy. But I wound up getting a divorce and had to pack up and sell that house. I had to leave the church that I know Crystal and Meredith from after 25 years. And then I became homeless because I didn't have a place to go. And I wound up moving 2 times. God provided a place for me to stay for a month, and then God provided a place here with a crazy landlord. And in January, the condo that I'm living in, renting from this guy, went into foreclosure and was auctioned. It was just insane. I also had 3 surgeries and 2 very weird diseases. Who gets scabies in the middle of a pandemic when we're isolating? Like, what? So I'm not always sure what God is doing with me. But I have seen the faithfulness of God in the midst of all this. You know, in change, I know He is my stability no matter what. And I am so grateful for that. And I hope you are too. The final principle about change I want to share in the light of what we are doing. We've been talking about change that happens to us, but there are sometimes you are the driver of the change. And even though this comes from Gandhi, it's really very important. Be the change you wish to see in the world. If you want to be part of the racial reconciliation, if you want to see people become more godly in your church or your women's ministry group, you have to model that. You have to be the change that you want to see in the world. And more importantly, if we want to see people come to Christ, we have to be Christ-like so that they want what we have. So what questions do you have? Linda was going to unmute and see where we go. And I'm going to catch up on some of these comments. Okay, who has a question?
Well, hi, it's Pauline.
Hi, Pauline.
I have a question. With everything going on with women's ministry, you know, it's difficult to keep doing the same things over and over again and expecting change. Mm-hmm. So, you know, like we do a retreat every year. And I love the retreat, and there's lots of ladies on my team that love the retreat and the church that love the retreat, but yet we have limited impact with the younger women. Mm-hmm. So we've done everything. Is it the speakers? Are we having the wrong speakers? Everything that we said, it was, oh no, the speakers are great, the place is great, but I don't know. It's like, has it run its course that they're not going to go away for a weekend with a bunch of women when they can go away with their husband? It's kind of what it's come down to.
It may be. It may be worth having a focus group of them. Mm-hmm. And sitting down and saying, you know, we're trying to understand this. Is it that you don't like it? You don't want to come? Is it that we're doing something wrong? What would make you come? Thank you. I mean, we're seeing the same thing with By Design. We are starting to see more young women come. Mm-hmm. When I first started going to Faith Presbyterian Church, gosh, my kids were teens at that point, and I went to the women's ministry meeting, and it was somebody standing up, reading the minutes from the last meeting, somebody doing a devotional reading out of Daily Bread, and then eating finger sandwiches. And it was like, this has no relevance to me at all. Right. And they didn't see that, but they'd always been doing it that way. And they didn't see the value of what was there. So sometimes maybe it's listening. What else?
I was going to say, I loved the, you know, like the format of this. I felt as if I didn't need to go away for the weekend. It's an hour and a half commitment, which is not, out of, and I loved the little breakout sessions as well that, I find this technology, although I'm new to it too, but it's very, very interesting and, helpful. And I think, there's going to be more use for it in our churches and everywhere.
I would agree. Our small group has had much higher attendance, and the
Right.
parents with little kids have said, this is so good because we don't have to take turns so somebody can stay home with a baby. And our small group is probably going to stay virtual primarily. And, occasionally we'll do outings, but we have seen this has been much stronger for that.
Yeah, that's funny. We had our first retreat team meeting, and I had invited 12, 11 showed up, and a lot of them said that this was so much better because they didn't have to hurry up and do dinner, get the dishes done, put the kids to bed and run out. So I only missed one person, and she had already told ahead of time that she had to work that night.
Right.
So, yeah.
So we definitely see some things. All right, we're almost at time. So I am going to put one more thing up and ask, what did you learn today? So what difference is it going to make? We did a lot that's in here, and I want everybody to type this in chat just so everybody gets a chance to say something and you guys aren't talking over each other. And we will be sending out the link to this, probably the link to the recording, the slides for sure. We have to see how the recording comes out. It should be fine, but this will be available to you for you to share with others as we go. So let's type in the chat and talk about, okay, you just gave me an hour and a half. So what? What made this worthwhile for you? If it was worthwhile. And this is where it would be so nice if we had music for the background. Linda, you can hum.
Just don't do the Jeopardy theme.
No, we're not on a time
The Brady Bunch theme. There's a story. Okay.
Good. I see people seeing patterns. Someone mentioned a person who hadn't changed. Yeah, some people are stubborn and they won't change when God wants them to. Yeah, change imposed is change opposed. Yep, exactly. Yeah, changing pastors, understanding this. Yeah.
I'm new to this. How do you type a message? How do you send it?
You hit enter.
Enter. Okay.
I don't see a send at the bottom of mine. Let me just make sure that
No, it's just enter.
Great. Thanks for admitting that and asking. This is a change. This is new. Ask for help. Thanks, Lisa. I feel like what I'm feeling is normal. I'm so glad. I hope others felt that.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, because you're in the middle of chaos. It is chaos. It's okay. We will get through this.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's been a great topic today. Just terrific topic.
Oh, so glad.
Anyway, it would be, but especially now.
Yeah, I'm so glad. Yeah. Feel free to change things. All right, I'm going to turn this over to Linda to close out and maybe share what other things might be going on, and I'll stop sharing my screen, maybe, if I can figure out how to do that. There we go. Stop sharing. And there's all your smiling faces.
Wow. I'm glad that you had such positive responses to what was shared today. I thought it would be a very timely, pardon the pun, topic for us to deal with. And I'm thankful that Jean can give us so much great information for us to think about and pray about. I know for me, just knowing that I don't need to be alarmed at anger or resistance if change is being offered, that's part of the process. I think that'll help me be more patient and understanding, as women themselves have to go through all these different stages before we can arrive at a mutual agreement. So that was good for me to hear in particular. As far as other things coming, Maggie's already left because she had an appointment, but I wanted to let you know on June 27th, I don't have Maggie's book here in front of me, but Laurel had it, I know. Those of us that were at the retreat heard her speak, and I thought it would be nice to continue the conversation. So we're going to do that online using one of the chapters, thank you, Laurel, in her book. And I'll have Christy post this, but we're going to be talking about joy, believe it or not. That's her chapter on joy and why it seems so elusive. Even in the midst of this difficulty, can we experience the joy of the Lord? So that's coming up on June 27th. It'll be just an hour, so very short. It'll be monthly, and we'll pick a different chapter each month to go over. So you'll find more information on our website and also on Facebook about that.
What time is it?
It will be, that's a good question. I have to look at my calendar because I have all these Zoom meetings. I believe it's in the morning. I think it's, yes, it's 10 to 11 in the morning.
Okay.
On the 27th. So hopefully you can join us. And you don't have to have the book because it takes less than 10 minutes to read through one of her chapters. So just to let you know that. So we'll be reading that out loud and then discussing that topic. I can't think of anything else. Pauline or Jean, can you think of anything else? These gals are both on my board and my team, of course.
Pauline has some together groups going on. I'm gonna paste in the chat the link to our events coming up. That's there for you guys. And Pauline, maybe you want to talk about together groups if anybody's interested in those.
Well, one of the ladies from my Southeast Massachusetts one is here, Diane Sturgis, and we just recently, this past week, we had a meeting. Linda joined me for this one, that we're going to do one online. So I've invited people that have told Linda in the past they were interested. We didn't get a lot of response this time, but people just need to figure out what it is. So I'm hoping that the next time one goes out, that more people will join us. And like Linda is picking a book, she's going to be we're picking a topic, and the topic we're looking at is about soul care. And that has been an awesome topic for us, our group. We finished ours this year. We did it for the 8 months that we met. And we focused on taking care of ourselves, what it means to not only ourselves, but within our family and then within our ministry. So.
And I should mention that normally our together groups are more regionally because we have one up here in Concord.
Right.
And also in Lowell. And Pauline's on the South Shore. But the one that she mentioned that we just had this past week, it doesn't matter which geographic area you're from. You can join her and the others. So you can see that information on our website as well.
Great. So. And I just pasted the link to the slides in the chat. So you'll have them now, but we'll send a response out with them and we'll figure out how we'll do the recording.
Great. So let's everybody thank Jean. Thank you, Jean.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you all for coming. I appreciate it.
We'll see you all in heaven.
Nice meeting new people.
Yeah. Everyone. Great.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.